Hi, my name's Martin, and together with my partner Claire, back in 2021, we bought this garden here in France. Welcome to our lost estate. Hi, I'm Martin.
Hi, I'm Claire.
Welcome back to our lost estate. And today we're going to be looking at the garden, or the secret garden as we like to call it, or even our lost estate. It was one of the things I think that attracted us most when we first came to look at the property, wasn't it? I mean, the house was good, but it was when we were walking around the garden. I remember one day you kind of nudged me on one of our viewings and sort of said, can we do this?
Yeah. It's a big project, it's no mistake. And it was beautifully designed, but behind me it was overgrown.
Yeah, I remember when we bought it. I mean, it was all the bees, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Brambles, bracken, bindweed. It's just, yeah, not great. And
It's a lot of effort to roll it back. We have rolled a lot of it back.
we've spent 2 years mostly cutting bracken and brambles.
I'm an expert at brambling.
Brambling, yeah, we're definitely there. But each time we kind of seem to go and expose a little bit more, and it just intrigues us, as we have from the very beginning been intrigued by all of it, isn't it?
Let's share it with you about what it was that we found and the story behind it.
Yeah, I mean, the story really is it's got to start back in the 1800s when, as we sort of said previously on the house, this was a farmstead, and it very clearly was a working farm. But at some point, we don't know exactly when, there was the kind of the purpose of the whole place shifted, and there's a lot of things changed at that point because
the way it was laid out is more like a stately home estate in miniature, and we're not quite entirely sure when that happened. But some of the oldest trees are obviously over 100 years old, maybe 200 years old. So we're not quite sure who planted them initially. I'm sat here looking at the biggest blue cedar I've ever seen in my life. So that was clearly planted by somebody at some point.
But yeah, I mean, it all goes back to, I think, one of the biggest things that we've figured out is that a road used to go through our property. And at some point, we don't know whether it's 1800s or early 1900s, that road was moved. And at this point we got the lovely back gate that was one of my favourite bits when I first saw it, which is the gate from the original episode that I walked through.
Which used to be the entrance gate.
It did. It was the main entrance to the property originally, and you can see there was a road goes through it because it just goes past a mile marker.
So obviously that gate wasn't there, and that the road has shifted slightly.
Absolutely, and we think that was when the kind of the purpose of this place changed, didn't it? It was a working farm previously, but then it shifted to be more of a pleasure palace, didn't it?
Yeah.
And as part of that, they had to move the road and set up the boundaries because there's this lovely stream that goes through
through the valley.
It does.
Yeah, and then after the road was moved, and from the build you can see it was probably 50s because of the way the concrete's been used, the fact that concrete was used and the way it has been done. And they've created 4 ponds, and when I say ponds, 2 of them are the size of a lake.
They are absolutely huge, aren't they?
Yeah.
But no, you could tell the purpose shifted because of the focus on it and the design on the garden. There was such a focus on beauty, wasn't there, really? And it's kind of on that mile marker. They've repurposed it, haven't they?
They've repainted it, and on one side it says Allée de Rose.
Indeed, and that's what's down the old driveway, which led from that top gate all the way down into the farmyard at the front of our house.
Yeah.
But yes, there's this Allée de Rose where we haven't found. Well, we did find 1 or 2 roses on there, but
they'd gone wild and aren't blooming, so they're not great.
Yeah.
But we did uncover some huge mature shrubs.
there are down there beautiful. weigelas
Yeah.
and spirea
Yeah.
and all sorts of...
Rhododendrons.
Oh, the rhododendrons are massive, aren't they?
Just incredibly large shrubs that have been completely swathed in brambles. And then primroses as well throughout the woodland garden.
Yeah,
They're
the
quite
flowers.
distinct. I kept looking at them thinking, they're not normal wild primroses. Somebody's actually planted these. And then by chance I was looking for helleborus and I found one of the nurseries in France had been set up after the war, and they provided all these incredible different types of primroses, and it was apparently really fashionable. That kind of tweaked in my brain. I thought, oh, okay, so it looks like she planted them deliberately.
And the daffs.
Yeah, the daffs.
The daffodils. Where we've cut back brambles, it's kind of the following year we just get daffodils coming up in these random spaces that don't seem to make sense. We'd never seen them there before, but suddenly we've got a lot of clearly deliberate ornamental daffodils appearing all over the place.
And then there's the fir trees. Interestingly, by the gate are 2 cypresses, which is very Provençal actually. They plant them there and they're called Peace and Prosperity, and it kind of frames the entrance to the whole estate. And then we started noticing the other fir trees.
Yeah, because we spot these little fir trees elsewhere.
A pair of them in different places.
And it always seems to be highlighting a feature of some sort. And as we explore a little bit more around the fir trees and uncover things, we keep making more and more discoveries, which is great.
There's one that's like a viewing platform. You can see there was an old seat between them where we would have sat and looked out.
Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful. It's one of my favourite views down the valley there, and it shows again how well designed the garden was, where you have this beautiful fading colour of trees with a red maple down at the bottom of a really dark colour, and then going up through dark greens to medium greens to light greens as it just fades down this view, which has to have been designed. It is so deliberate there. But yeah, I mean that kind of leads us into the trees that we have here. Obviously, you've already seen the glory that is the magnolia just by the house.
And I mentioned the blue cedar, which is enormous.
Yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
I looked up about blue cedars, and apparently they're meant to get 40 to 60 foot high. I think ours is probably pushing 100 foot high. At some point I'll have to do a video about measuring it. So we'll see what's that. But yeah, we've got lime and linden trees that have clearly been used, I think, as a wood supply before, because they've been pollarded a number of times.
They have.
Although not for probably the last 30 years,
Which is
we think.
something we will be doing this autumn, and yes, we will make sure it's videoed.
Absolutely. The amount of that will be generated off them, the amount of wood will be great.
The limes are particularly, and the linden are getting terribly over heavy.
But then some of the trees have to have been here from way before that. I mean, the oak tree that we've got has to be 250 years. No, but they're all there. It's something we weren't, or I wasn't particularly anticipating, was becoming a caretaker of some very large mature trees altogether. But
no, it's a learning experience, I have to say. But
very
one that
much.
we're really leaning into. So yeah, that's great, actually.
Absolutely, but yeah, all of that design work seems to come back to the original plans that were put together and how well designed it was. So one of the first bits that I remember uncovering back in 2021 is kind of we were trying to say, right, where first? There was so much of it, and you thought there were some steps. And these were totally covered in brambles, and we went and had a little look, and sure enough there were a set of steps that were connecting the Allée de Rose up to the old road, which was known as Boule Plage, or is now known as Boule Plage.
Yes, let's go back to the mile marker a minute, because on the other side of the mile marker it says Boule Plage. And we're like, okay, that's interesting. What is Boule Plage?
Yeah, we still haven't quite answered that fully, but we've got some clues. But yeah, if you were ever trying to walk around up to Boule Plage, if those steps weren't there, you'd have to walk hundreds of metres just to get kind of up this one flight of steps.
Yeah.
And as we rolled back those brambles, it's kind of discovered the full flight of steps, and me doing my Rocky impression at the top of the steps. And then suddenly found 2 lion statues halfway up the steps.
totally covered. And then when we started to uncover the bottom, we found a third lion statue.
Yeah.
And in conversation with the original owner, the last owner, he said, "Oh yeah, I think there was 4 originally."
Yeah, so one's missing,
gone
but
missing.
We've still got 3, and I'm sure that 4th one will be just a kind of a mirror image of the other large one we found at the bottom.
We're going to keep an eye out for a matching pair, because they weren't original.
Or maybe at some point we'll have to get a cast of it done. We've got some high-res photos, so that will be lovely.
They did need a bit of work, to be fair. We've had to restore them.
Yeah,
they were terribly eroded.
It's with the neglect in the garden, isn't it? They were suffering neglect as well, so we pulled them inside, have done a bit of a restore on them to make sure that they're a bit more weatherproof now than they were. But yeah, these steps lead up to Boule Plage, and the bit of the plage we think we might have found, because plage in French means beach.
Yeah. So at the top of the steps, if you look right, we look down towards the marker, and we think possibly that bit was the Boules area, because it's very flat. But
it's the only flat bit on the entire property.
Pretty much. And then if you look left, there's this beautiful rhododendron, and behind that is a second pond, which is the size of a lake, and is actually a wild swimming pool.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I measured it to be 35 metres long and 15 metres wide, and apparently it's about 3 metres deep. So
and we know it was a swimming pond because it has a diving board.
It's a classic 1950s concrete kind of metre-long diving board.
It looks like that side of it looks like something out of I don't know, a Lido or something from the 1950s.
It does, yeah. It reminds me of a Lido very much. So you can just imagine all the people wearing their swimsuits, which are 2 inches above the knee at most, and whatever.
And then obviously there's a pool house, which is called La Belvedere. More of that later. Absolutely,
yeah. In our outbuildings video, we'll give you a full introduction into that one. But
from the Belvedere down to the edge of the pond, we uncovered yet another flight of steps.
Absolutely, the discoveries just keep coming. We keep thinking we'll run out.
2 pine trees again.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, very much so. But yeah, the swimming pool's lovely. We haven't gone swimming in it yet because although it's got a good ecosystem there, it's a bit highly sludged up and just too much organic matter, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had the water tested. It's wonderfully pure. Just a lot of
organic matter down there, which needs a bit of work on the ecosystem there, just to improve, as you say, the circulation.
We're going to get a solar pump, we think, to keep it going.
Yeah, it's been quite a challenge finding products for that. I've got 1 or 2 in mind, but we'll have a look, see later in the year as to exactly how we fix that.
The things we have seen is there's a nesting pair of kingfishers. It's teeming with fish. Lots and lots going on, frogs and toads and dragonflies and damselflies, just amazing.
But yeah, along with the swimming pool this year, I think there are 2 other ponds which we're going to be focusing our work on. The one we call the theatre pond and the cascade pond, where they have a similar... So they're all part of the stream and have a similar outflow system, but over the years they've rotted out, so those ponds are empty. Well, when I say empty, they're full of brambles and
inevitably
stuff.
Brambles.
So we'll be cleaning them out, fixing them up, and getting them working into beautiful, back to where they should be type ponds.
And you've already started investigating, haven't you? The theatre pond, so that's coming up soon. Absolutely,
yes. Had to do that earlier this year. But yeah, I think the garden, kind of carrying on with our themes of this year, we've had a lot of fun with the kitchen garden, which was a bit I managed to clear back last year, so that we've got some space for putting in our own little potager with all sorts of veg and tomatoes and stuff this year, which is great.
And also the orchard is in full flood. We're just about to start harvesting. Red currants are going for it massively, so that's coming up. And we know from last year that the peach trees, we've got 2 peach trees, produce loads of fruit.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have to do videos on the harvesting and what we do with them in the kitchen. Absolutely. Yeah. I think the other big thing this year will be both of us learning a lot more about tree management, isn't it? There's with all these mature trees here, there's so much that we need to learn and work with them to make sure that they're here for another 200 years.
Yeah, definitely. That is part of our. We want to leave that as part of our legacy. A healthy, thriving estate with beautiful mature trees and a great ecosystem. That's on our tick list, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I think that kind of is a whistle-stop tour of really the key bits that intrigued and inspired us when we walked the place here.
It's possibly we've only covered about half the property, so we will concentrate on the rest in other videos.
Yeah, I think we'll do spotlight focuses on various parts, but no, I think that's it for this time. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for watching,
Lovely.
and yeah, see you in the next video.
Bye.